Hey, everybody. Welcome to an insanely packed Snap Take. Today, you can tell what we're talking about. We're talking about Jeff. I messed up. I thought Jeff wasn't going to be good. I thought Jeff wasn't going to be meta. And he clearly fits into, makes numerous absolutely stellar decks. Jeff is must have right now for me. So I went out after casting this weekend with Teebs and bought Jeff. Today, I've got 7 different Jeff decks for you. That's right, 7, because Jeff is freaking busted in so many shells. But first, like and sub for for the best snap takes every single weekday. In addition, we have a contest. First, we have a contest winner. Cheech P. Congrats. Reach out. Twitter, Discord, pick away. We've got an email in the description. Whatever makes you happy, pick a way to reach out, and we'll make sure you get either the Hitmonkey Season Pass or this week's Token Tuesday, whatever you prefer. Next up, though, we've got a giant giveaway for next week. For the Nebula season, we're giving away an absolute ton. And hey, if you tried to win last week and didn't, and even if you did, Cheech, you are automatically entered into this next week's giveaway. Doing all the steps will get you the extra entries, not the regular. So please, let's take a look at what the giveaway is. First off, we're giving away 5, not 1, not 2, 5 season passes for Nebula. We'll be announcing these winners of each of these season passes in the video that comes out the day of season release. So you have a week and a half to enter. Next up, we have a grand prize. We're not just giving away these 5 season passes. The grand prize is you get Nebula, but you also get every token Tuesday for the Nebula season on us. Cool. Hopefully that's something you find interesting. Hopefully you find value in the content and it's worth doing these steps in order to enter. How do you enter? First, you follow me on Twitter at SnapJudgeCast. Nice and simple. Go over to twitter.com, follow at SnapJudgeCast. Next up, there'll be an announcement tweet for this very contest. You like and retweet that announcement tweet. Next up, you reply in the comments after liking and retweeting with your favorite card coming out this month. This channel will obviously have plenty of content for all 4 of these cards, but which of these cards is your favorite that's coming out this month? Iron Lad, Howard the Duck, High Evolutionary, or The Living Tribunal? Each one changes how the game is played in really interesting ways. Which one is your favorite? That's not it. You can get extra entries. Give yourself an extra chance for that prize and that grand prize. Here's what you do. You get 1 extra entry for a follow on YouTube. Just comment your Twitter name on any YouTube video released this week. For that, you get an extra entry. There's also an extra entry for retweeting any Snaptake video this week. There's a Snaptake every day. There's a Twitter announcement of the Snaptake every day. Find it, hit retweet. It's all you have to do. You get an extra entry. We're recording the podcast tonight, Monday night, with our boy and yours, Bootman, at BootmanMSTZ on Twitter. Retweet that announcement of the podcast, and please listen because Bootman's incredible. Every episode of this podcast is killer. You got to check it out. Retweet the podcast announcement. You get 2 extra entries. And lastly, you get 2 extra entries for getting friends to subscribe on YouTube. You get a friend to sub on YouTube, have them comment who told them about the channel, and then they will be entered, and as long as they do the other steps, and you get 2 entries. Cool. That is our contest. Hopefully you think that's interesting. Hopefully you're willing to join, and hopefully you win. Next up, we've got 7 Jeff decks. Jeff deck number 1 is the Ramp. Longtime viewers will know I've hit infinite with Ramp decks. I've had viewers and friends of the show hit infinite with Ramp decks I've made. I think I'm reasonably good at building Ramp. This is not the Ramp deck everyone else is playing. It's similar, but not the same. I want to talk about what this Ramp deck does, what its differences are, what its play lines are. So first off, the first thing you'll notice is I've been pushing Lizard over Maw because, well, you weren't playing Maw is scary into Galactus, and Galactus is a big part of the meta. Fine, 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 fine. I'm going to take that bad matchup at this point, I think. I'm willing to take it because I want to have a play on 1 and a play on 3 with Psylocke, and Maw gives me both of those things. On 2, my play is reserved for our baby friend. Sounds good? Sounds good. Next up, Iceman has replaced Sunspot. There's very rarely actual extra energy in this deck. So what Iceman does is he basically says, I can ruin your game with 1 hit. Opponent playing Sarah? Not anymore. Opponent playing Surfer? Their last turn is extremely limited. Opponent trying to Hobgoblin you? Not anymore. Sandman? Now a really difficult play even with ramp. Etc. etc. Iceman right now is an absolutely great medical. And hey, my bad. We should have been playing him last season. Iceman is sweet into both Shuri and Red Skull. You hit Shuri or Red Skull, and their whole plan is foiled. They literally, like Shuri on 5 is just a mediocre card, and Red Skull on 6 means that it's really hard to play right after Shuri, and they better hope they see their She-Hulk combo. Iceman is great, needs to be in more decks. Right now, play Iceman, thank me later. Okay, what's Psylocke doing here? Well, I need the extra percentage of seeing ramp with America Chavez not on this deck. I was all ready to cut her for either Jubilee or Lizard, and then I realized if I don't have space for America anymore, I need more ramp. I also realized that I'm not the only person that could take advantage of Wave. There's enough stuff that my opponents can do, especially because so many of them are running Wave to take advantage of it, that I'd really like another option if I can read what they're playing by turn 3. My turn 2 play is Jeff. If my turn 3 play is Psylocke, what I'd like to do is go Sandman into either Arrow or Devil Dino into Leader or Doom. Nice and simple. I guess Odin if I need to copy Arrow. But the idea is to get out some big cards, limit their plays, win the game. Devil Dino is here specifically over Magneto because of the Psylocke play. I need 3 5s to have a greater chance of seeing 2 of them for that Psylocke play. What else am I doing? Electro is obviously the idea. Electro into Sandman is what this deck is built for. It's why I'm not 1,000% sure America being gone is right, because that extra percent of seeing Electro and Sandman is, in fact, huge. If this were a tournament, I think I'd be finding space for America. I think I'd probably then be losing Psylocke and just running America for that consistency. However, we're not in a tournament. On the ladder, you can afford that little bit of extra EV, lose at 1 cube if you need to, for the extra chance of winning more games down the line. I think that's more important when you're not playing one person over and over again. So Electro into Sandman is the goal, into Leader or Doom, into Odin on Leader or Doom. Nice and simple. Should win a lot of games. If for some reason after Electro you don't have a big thing, remember that Jeff ignores both Electro and Sandman's abilities and can jump in with a wave with whatever you'd like it to. Wave is the most complicated play because, again, the wrong opponent can and will ruin your life if you wave at the wrong time, especially Galactus, which is always going to be a hard matchup. But you would really like to wave into Doom or Leader, then play any of your 5s, then Odin on top of Doom or Leader. That's the play lines for this deck. This deck is incredibly powerful. It's also incredibly boring. I've sort of ranked these decks from the least interested to most interesting for me. Um, I'm over Ramp. Ramp is everywhere. It's the single most popular deck right now, followed by Galactus. This wins a lot. If you want to hit Infinite, play this. You can do it without Jeff too. Hit me up. I'll send you the list. Next 2 decks are our boy Jhugs. We love Jhugs. Along with the contest in the comments, you can also find Jhugs' channel. Jhugs won a tournament playing Ronin. He played this counter to Sandman Ronin deck. The idea here is fundamentally you get out Ronin or Devil Dino on 5, and on 6, you either, if it was Ronin, you Maximus and Jeff in order to fill up their hand and put 10 power on the board. Not bad. Or if you had Devil Dino out, you can play Jeff and Coulson, Jeff and Sentinel, etc. A little less power that way, but Devil Dino is usually easier to keep big. The early game is a bunch of control pieces, Iceman and Scorpion to screw up their hand, Korg to screw up their deck. Who knows what Coulson gives you? Usually something good, also really good stats, and the rest of this deck are stat sticks. They want, well, White Queen is also information, but largely just stat sticks. The goal of this deck is to get ahead, stay ahead, control them just enough, mess with them just enough, and again, remember, Iceman is completely busted in handling these ramp decks that are everywhere, handling half the meta right now. Get ahead, drop the biggest things, and then make them so powerful your opponent can't possibly answer. Just fair warning, this deck would really, really, really love a Master Mold. I'd argue in the Korg spot, this deck would absolutely adore a Master Mold. Master Mold would fit this deck completely perfectly, but I don't think Master Mold is worth 6,000 tokens for one deck. There's a version of this deck that operates almost exactly the same as this, except it runs Darkhawk's package in the Devil Dino package. Pick your poison. I prefer the Devil Dino package. Not a big deal. Jhugs' second deck is even cooler than the first. This is a lane lockdown. You have two real paths here. Ideally, you're getting down Daredevil. If you can combine the two, you just win the game immediately. You get out all your nice stuff. Ideally, you're storming on 3, then playing Jess Jones, and then Daredevils give you the information on where to Professor X the last turn. At that point, you've got a way to get power into the lanes that are locked off with Mr. Fantastic. You've got a way to get power. Oh, sorry, Spider-Man or Professor X. If it's Spider-Man, a way to get power in with Doom. And if you've managed to get Jeff out, well, Jeff jumps into Professor X, Spider-Man, or Stormed lanes just fine, winning those. Sweet, sweet, sweet deck. Also, for Storm and Spider-Man, Nightcrawler works as a poor man's Jeff. Perfectly fine. It's awesome. You love to see it. Next up, we have Teebs' deck. Teebs is the one who convinced me to buy Jeff finally. This is the deck that they are running. In this deck, Jeff is fundamentally just way better Nightcrawler. Basically, goes in Lockjaw just fine, and if Jeff comes out of Lockjaw, you move Jeff out of the way so you can play whatever big thing you would like. This is especially useful because this deck has no way to really get into fully lockdown locations. Doom helps, but there's those locations that even Doom can't get to. Jeff does not care. Jeff goes where Jeff wants. The rest of the deck is your standard ramp deck. This deck was really popular about 3 seasons ago during that Surfer Zabu meta and won a lot of games. This still does that. It still plays exactly the same otherwise. It wants to get Lockjaw and then drop things into Lockjaw in order to get humongous cards. It's got so many humongous cards that Dracula is likely to chuck one. If you don't see Lockjaw, you want to see Jubilee. And then just start using Jubilee to drop things. You can also throw Jubilee into the jaw. Really, really powerful deck. Really cool. Jeff, basically as a land shark, works perfectly well with the doggo. Cool. Next up, we've got my favorite deck. Actually, I don't know if this is my favorite deck. I really like these last 3. These last 3 are all kind of my favorite. All right. So Safety Blade made this with a few other people. I don't remember exactly who. I'm so sorry. You can yell at me later, Safety. Okay. This deck has the coolest play line I've ever seen. Your goal is to obviously Lockjaw, but forget Lockjaw for now. You get Jeff down, you get a bunch of stones out. On 4, you Killmonger them. Ideally, killing at least 4 to make death, hopefully, 0. So far, so good. If you get death to 0, this just goes off. If you've got Jeff out, you wave on turn 5, you move Jeff. Spider-Man is now 1, not affected by wave. If you could have Black Bolted on 4 or 5 with your Energy Stone, right? 4, I guess, is ideal. Your Stature is also a 1, not affected by wave. That opens up the possibility on the last turn of the game of Spider-Man, Stature, Death, and any of the other big bodies. That's completely insane, right? That's the best last turn in the game. Odds are most of that's not happening. You're not going to get everything. But you can pretty often get 1 or 2 of those things with Death going. And when you do, this deck just goes off. It feels like this should be too many packages. And then you play the deck and you're like, oh, it just works. Hey, Nightcrawler works more or less just fine here. The problem with Nightcrawler is you really want to Killmonger and you really want to move Nightcrawler. And it's really hard to do both sometimes. But short of that, this deck goes off. If it sees Lockjaw, snap, you're going to be in heaven with this. This is so many strong cards that are so hard to deal with. Next up, we have a deck I just made. I call it Professor Surfer. So Sarah's great, right? But Sarah in Surfer has long been a really controversial card. Thanks, Specimen, for making that so difficult for everybody. I think Surfer wants to run a reasonably low curve and then a 5 still. That 5 in this case is Professor X. It's obvious that Jeff can jump into the Professor X lane for a lot of power. Mr. Fantastic can boost that Professor X lane for a little power. Daredevil lets you know where to do it. Cool. How else does this win? Well, you've got your Storm Juggernaut package. You've got your Surfer shenanigans. Iceman, I'm putting in everything. Sorry. This could easily run Killmonger over Mr. Fantastic. I wanted a little bit of extra synergy. It moves cards. It has powerful cards. It prevents plays between Goose, Professor X, and Storm. You can lock down your opponent's whole board. It's crazy strong. This is one of the best decks in the meta. This is the first one I played. I've been playing it half it today, and let me just tell you, I love it. One of my friends does not have Jeff right now. Hey, Derek. Derek is instead playing Rogue. He swears by Rogue. He says I should be running Rogue over Mr. Fantastic because Devil, Dino, and Darkhawk are everywhere. Cool. If you are running into that in your meta, turns out I'm playing an absolute ton of Thanos, so I'm slotting in Killmonger off and on. But whatever you're running into in your personal meta right now, that's what this spot should be. That's what the Mr. Fantastic spot should be. I think everything else is fairly locked in, but that one spot it would with a Mr. Fantastic would be absolutely stellar. Also, don't forget your Professor X is just fine. What I'd like to do on the last turn is, if I don't see Surfer, have the opportunity to have Professor X in a lane with whatever Iceman and whatever 3, right? And I'd like to be able to just drop a Jeff in there or move a Jeff in there and have Professor X in another lane to power it up. It's a good way to add an extra 5 power they're not expecting to that lane, which often steals the game. This deck is glorious. If you have these cards, you got to try it. Nightcrawler is not a replacement for Jeff. More than any other deck here, you cannot replace Jeff in this deck for it to work nearly as well. However, the deck is really good either way. One more thing, I toyed with Negasonic here. Negasonic might be a little bit overkill here, in that like Negasonic doesn't really do enough against Doom to be worth it. But short of that, Negasonic would also be an excellent add. All right, I was screwing around online on Untapped, and I found this deck that has like a 1.2 cube rate in 200 games, 300 games, with a 66% win rate. This is like the ultimate in location control. This is the coolest deck. I'm going to be playing the crap out of this at least until season reset. And if I can figure it out well enough, I'm playing this next season to infinite. All right. It's running all the lane control, all the location control. Goose, Scarlet Witch, Storm. Great. How do I make these things win? Well, I Quake. I Negasonic. I drop Captain Marvel. I have Shang-Chi. I have Juggernaut to lane control. I can go wide with Doom. I can get under Goose with She-Hulk. I can just soak energy to do so and gain a bunch of power. I want Iceman so bad, but Sunspot with She-Hulk is too good here. This is so sweet. I'm so excited for this deck. This and Teebs deck put me over the top. Professor X, Surfer X is so good. But this deck, right? So on 1, I Sunspot, right? Great. On 2, I've got options. I really want Quake to be my 4, so I'd rather not Quake. I basically take a good location and make it bad. I want there to be bad locations if I have Quake and Jeff. Or I Goose and immediately make their lives difficult. At that point, I take a location and I storm it. I could just storm a Juggernaut, right? I can storm a Juggernaut, storm a Negasonic, and basically lock down that location if I don't have Quake. Or I can storm and let them try and stack it if I do have Quake. Let them overcommit to a lane, maybe even fill it, when I'm just going to take all that stuff away and win a different location. At that point, I can play one of my other powerful cards elsewhere, right? Or let Captain Marvel or Doom do that. Cool. If I do want to win the Storm lane, again, Juggernaut and Negasonic are great for that. On 4, I'm ideally playing 2 of the other 2s, Quake, Scarlet Witch, Juggernaut or Negasonic with Storm, or Quake and goose to mess things up. I've now locked down several. On 5, I like to Captain Marvel. If I have Sunspot out, I can pass. And She-Hulk and Captain Marvel on the last turn. If I Captain Marvel, I can also then just doom the last turn. Got something big? Shung it. Got priority? Can't shung it? Well, that's what Negasonic is for. This deck answers everything. And with Quake, it's so easy to win extra cubes. There's very little the opponent can do. I'm so excited by this deck. I really wish I could explain how awesome it is. Check me out on TikTok. You're gonna see this deck get played constantly over there. All right, all right, all right. That's why I think I bought Jeff. Like, these decks are just sweet. Like, the ramp is dull but wins. The I mean, Jeff is great in Ronin. How do you not love Ronin decks? He's great in lockdown decks. He's great in lockjaw decks. He's great in Thanos decks. Opening up completely new play lines, by the way, for Thanos. He's great in Surfer decks. And whatever this monstrosity is just the sweetest thing in the world. Okay, that's it. That's my wrap up. Please make sure that you follow on Twitter at SnapJudgeCast. Follow all the steps. They can be found in the description. I'm not going to run you through them again, but they'll be on Twitter around the same time this goes live. Make sure you retweet. Let's do this. See you tomorrow for another Snap Take. See you tomorrow also for Snap Judgments podcast. And hey, we've got a secondary surprise mini podcast thing coming up for you later in the week, too. Catch you then.